uh, as you know, as everyone knows, like in COVID, many people have lost their lives. There was someone to pass away in my like close family. So I've seen, if as the thoughts that you portray in your poem, that if you do not change, so they lived a life of everyone else, like everyone live the same way, running after these things that I mentioned. What happened in the end, like they pass away, it's okay, their life ended. But what happened was they made the person that were immediate close to them miserable, because they were so attached and stuff. So eh, the point is, like, if you do not change, in the end you will spend a journey of miserable life, and after passing away you will make others people life even miserable.
No, Mayur, I
So,
would not want to agree with the choice of words here. Say you are attached to me and I die. So your attachment makes you miserable, right? I have no role in that.
no, no. So
Yeah.
if you do not, my point is, if you do not take steps towards change, as your poem mentioned,
Hmm.
so that vicious cycles continue, right? You do not inspire the ones to change, and makes other ones stuck in that same vicious
Okay.
cycle. So that is what I meant.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think again, so many times we have heard this, right? That if you want to do one thing in the world, is like, make yourself light, find your peace. Because each person finding their peace will make the whole world peaceful. Because something shifts, and somehow it's like, when we see somebody achieving something, especially I'm talking about non materialistic things here, a part of me could say that, oh my God, he has achieved and I haven't. But what joy that if she has achieved, I can too, right? It's just a way of saying this. And when you look at it, that if she has achieved, he has achieved, I can too, suddenly there's an expansion, right? Suddenly it's like I'm connected to something bigger than me. And the moment I say, oh, he has achieved and I haven't, I shrink, right? So again, there's so many small, small things, but you're absolutely right that we owe it to ourselves and to the others. And it's like that reminds me, like once I had I'd spoken to, there's a mystic called Acharya Prashant, which I often refer to. I had a meeting with him, a private meeting, that was a long time back when I could afford one. So there I was like, I feel weird, because it's like my family wants something else and I'm going to want something else. Those things don't interest me and stuff. And I feel that I'm doing them, I'm not doing good by them. Like they just want simple things like, say, what's for dinner and stuff, and I don't want to engage in those conversations, kind of a thing. And he had given, a very beautiful example. He said that, there's a game of Kho. I think Kho it was, like, sorry, Kabaddi, that it's like when you're running in the opposite direction and people are coming to after you to stop you, because whenever you walk on the path, there are people who want to pull you back, right? Where are you going, what are you doing, this doesn't make sense. So he said that we don't even realize that if we start walking and there are others, who are coming to pull you back, before they realize, they have also crossed over. Because they were so busy in pulling you back, they also had to walk on the same path to pull you back. So I don't know if it makes any sense, but it just, I mean, like you said, it's really important for each and every one of us. It's like when somebody is dependent on me, I could find a joy in that. That, see, I'm so indispensable. But how sorry, what a sorry state it is, right? And it's so beautiful that I'm totally dispensable, right? Everybody would be absolutely fine if I'm not here today. I mean, again, depends on where you see it from. Like, what part of me is getting what kind of joy from this. So, again, your thing just reminded me of something. I was also involved in a near death experience, and that experience basically, took the life of my younger brother. And when we were having the cremation meeting, first of all, I thought that I would not be able to speak. Like, there was no intention for me to speak because it was a very tough time, that prayer meeting. And suddenly, everything was quite low, in that prayer meeting. And my brother, he knew how to live life. How he's one of those people who, I don't know when he used to sleep, because he was just always doing something, like so busy at work, so busy with friends, so busy with out, I don't know, going outside and having fun, and yet reading the Gita at the same time, kind of a thing. And suddenly I felt myself wanting to speak, and that's exactly, I don't know, that's what I felt I had to say, that if a life was so beautifully lived, how can the passing be so sad? So it was kind of, I was like, just three cheers for his life. It was so odd for a elder sister to say that, hip hip hooray for his life. But that's what I genuinely felt, that it was a life well lived, and even if it was ended early, it demands a celebration and not a sadness. Of course the sadness is there, and yet we should not ignore the celebratory aspect of it. And I think similar things, I would say that, Ritu and I, we had written a book, and it had some aspects of freedom fighters in it. And in that, one of the characters, a small child, asked the elder that, say Rani Jhansi died or another freedom fighters died, and it's so sad, right? But is it? Is it sad? Because, those lives that were gone, they inspired so many. One Bhagat Singh, I don't know, lit 10,000, 20,000, 80,000 lights, which further led to the freedom movement. So it's like, we just can't take it so objectively, okay, life, death. But it's like, what are you doing when you are alive? Are you living? So again, each and everything would matter. I don't know how I came to this side of it. I apologize. I come back, but it's just, we owe it, like you said. I am so thankful you got, you raised this point, that you owe yourself and to the others around you to try to be more conscious, more aware, more working towards where you would want to be, and not just live like a robotic mechanical life. So yes, please, anybody who would want to share anything.
Yes, I guess if we are not conscious in this life, if we keep sleeping, I mean, having fun, or going out and things, but without conscious, we're going to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it again until we remember. We remember that we are divine, yes, and we need to have great gratitude to be alive, yes. And someone say that we are going to make others miserable if we are miserable after life. Yeah, I guess because we come back like a ghost, and then the ghosts are making I mean, scare everybody and make miserable everybody. Yes, I think it's in that way. I mean, I can understand and relate in that way. I don't know. Just I'm very grateful that you speak about this topic. It's very difficult to approach to that. And I see now a cousin that is dying. He's 40 years old. He have cancer, and he doesn't want to approach to God. And that makes me so sad. But I think it's his place, his life, you know, and he have to learn. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I get identified with that, but I cannot go to tell him, just open yourself to the divine or to look at his more things. No, he's just, I mean, I know he's in another kind of path right now.
Yes, Claudia. It's just, it's everybody's their own journey. Everybody is right at their places. And we cannot really, do anything for anybody except live, maybe, how it's like lead by example, that you're just living because you don't know how else not to live that way. And if somebody catches on, catches on. If not, not. And that's all right. Like, everybody has their journey and nothing is right or wrong again. Yeah.
Yes.
I had today, Ritu had shared this with me once. This is, I again saw it today. It's some text by Yogananda Paramhansa, who had, Paramhans, who had written the book, the autobiography of a yogi, which was like an international bestseller. So just very, a few lines from that. He has said that don't depend on death to liberate you from your imperfections. You are exactly the same after death as you were before. Nothing changes. You only give up the body. If you are a thief or a liar or a cheater before death, you don't become an angel merely by dying. If such were possible, then let us all go and jump in the ocean and become angels. Whatever you have made of yourself thus far, so will you be hereafter. And when you reincarnate, you will bring that same nature with you. To change, you have to make the effort, and this world is a place to do it. Even I just remembered that even Vivekananda had said something like this, that, the world is a gymnasium. And this is here, where you come to kind of make yourself more powerful. But we forget that, right? Because the things that we are gymming, the body muscles that we are gymming, that's really of not much use. But just to keep remembering that, it is right now or it's again another life wasted. Like, I have a chance right now not to waste this one too. And if I do it, I do. It's okay. There will be more life, but yeah. And I don't know if how many of you are familiar with Kabir. I think Kabir has spoken so much. Kabir is a Claudia, for you, is an Indian saint. He was a poet, and he has written so much, so beautifully and rawly, about in rawness, not rawly, sorry, about death, that we are kind of again that we are already dead. So it's really beautiful how we still have the possibility of being alive. And this thing about we being exactly the same after we die, again, just to, because it might just help others to see things. Like when I was going through the ND, I would want to share, it's like I was hit by lightning indirectly. And I was just walking towards some place, and suddenly I felt, that power, such a powerful force just pushed me, kind of, I think my body flew backwards, because of that impact. And in that moment when I was flying backwards, I was like, this is it. I have no control over anything. Like I cannot stop anything. It's like totally, that like absolutely zero control over anything. So that realization that I really can't do anything and it's all just, the nature taking over was there. And then I don't remember hitting the ground. And what I remembered was like, it's like, how those water parks, they have those tubes, like fully covered tubes in which you take a tube and you go down. So there was this movement which was upwards in that tube, and it was quite fast. Like I was going somewhere very fast in that tube, and it was so damn painful. It was so beautiful. Like it was so much like, it was like that, okay, what is this? What, it's like, but it was so much, it was so much calmness there, and I was exactly as I am right now. The same thoughts, the same brain, the same everything. So this thing that, nothing changes, and maybe after some time it would have changed, so I don't know about that, but nothing changes, you go as you are, is pretty, I mean, it's true, like it's a lived experience that it's true. And just to, end that, some few things happened here and there, and then, I just heard my 5-year-old child cry, that, he was crying, taking my name, that, mama, mama, whatever. And suddenly, that, and there was this thought, like some energy, it asked me this question, that down or up, it asked me. And I was like, up is good, but, I would just want to tell the child that there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Why is he crying in fear? That was the only thought that came to me in a much shorter way. That just tell him that he's all right. And just as I thought about him, I don't know, maybe it was a pull or a attachment or something. Suddenly, that thing that was pulling me up, the course turned down, and the force came down, and I opened my eyes. So, but it was the same thought process, the same everything. It's just that is true, that whatever I focus on right now, whatever I can do right now to make myself more present, more aware, I must do that. Like, I should do that. Yeah. So we are almost at the end of the discussion. If there's any comments, anything, please unmute, share. And again, thank you so much for joining back, because there was this glitch and it ended. So I'm so thankful we can have this session, this discussion. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story, Tara. It was really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Claudia, thank you. So I think there's, I mean, it's like we're drawing to the end. There's so much more to probably say on this topic, but I think if we can just, even if we can question this for a minute, that what am I really doing, and I owe it, to myself and others to do more. I have taken, it's like I take so many things so seriously, like say my vows and my relationships, and how I owe this to this person and that to that person. But there's so much more owing that I have forgotten, like my owing to myself, maybe for this birth, my owing, like, Mayur had mentioned, to others, that, in addition to everything that I'm doing, I think I can owe more than, just this, what this body is doing, by taking more steps in other directions, which could actually also take me towards more light. So it's really nice. And I did, before we end, I did want to share one more thing that I had read sometime back at this would be somebody wants to leave at the rate of time. Please. So it's again by Khalil Gibran, and he said, he spoke on death. And he said that you would know the secret of death, but how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heat of life? The owl whose night bound eyes are blind unto the day cannot unveil the mystery of life. Even if so, there's a secret to death. So considering you're already, living a dead life, how will you find it? And like, that consciousness light thing that Monica had shared, that the owl whose night bound eyes are blind, if a little bit of light scares me, how do I think that I'll be able to face that bigger light? So if you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide onto the body of life, that the life that you're living right now, if you're more open to it. For life and death are one, even as the river and sea are one. For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? So if I am more alive right now, I'll know death better. I'll know what death is if I'm more alive right. So I think, yeah, that's it for this week's circle. Thank you so much for joining us and staying till the end, Claudia, Ritu.
One thing, Taru.
Yeah,
So Mayur, is he here or he's left?
I think he just left, but go
Okay.
on, he might ask for the recording. Yeah.
Okay. So just, but what Mayur said was that suffering, like after we die, our relatives suffer. So what Claudia said was that as ghosts, because we become ghosts and then we trouble them. So that was a bit, I mean, it wasn't as ghost, right?
Yeah, see, it's like to every culture, every person has their perceptions, right? Like ghost, it's like in Hindi, it's called Kal, like not Kal, it's called Bhoot Kal, right? Like Bhoot is also ghost in English. So basically, ghost say something which is not even there, right? And it's struck.
Memories and
You could, yeah, because it's like, it's like the way we live, we are so entangled with each other and we don't have our own, I am, no matter what, right? I am. But we forget that, right? We always don't, I am a mother, I'm a father, I'm a sister, I'm this. And now when something from that my I am has gone, I feel that void, right? And that what I think is the biggest cause of my suffering, because I feel that now what will I do? Because I had planned everything and everyone around it, and now that void. And I think somewhere we suffer because it also makes us more, I don't know, it makes death real, right? Something that we want to kind of just shun it, shrug it at the back of our thing that, yeah, hogi, I might die someday, but I'm not dying today. But the thing is, how do you know, right? You might just not wake up tomorrow. It is a possibility. I mean, I don't know what the probability would be, but you cannot say that it's not a possibility, right? And yet, whenever I think about my death, it's always, it will happen someday. But let me just do whatever I want to do right now, right? So it's, yeah, you're right. But I think both are true in their own ways, but mostly it's just my attachment to things
yeah.
and people that make me suffer. And there's something, I think, a stubbornness in me that I want life to be a certain way, right? And when it's not, like my ego is hurt, right? That ye kaise ho gaya? How did that happen? This is not a possibility, right? So I think that realization or that experience of facing something that you cannot control also makes you suffer, right? That how can I not control it? How could this happen? And yet, like, Kabir, again, I can think of, I don't know, 15 couplets of him right now on this topic, but this thing, that uh, there's this thing in which he says that the wife, is crying inconsolably that, my partner has been taken, my partner has been taken. But the wife has forgotten that the partner was given by the one who has taken, she doesn't remember that. But right now, so I think subak subak ke तेरिया रोए टूट गई मेरी जोड़ी कहे कबीर सुनो भाई साधो जिन जोड़ी तिन तोड़ी. Who gave you took it away, but you forget gave and you just remember that it was taken from me. It was taken from me. That me is nothing but, of course, our ego wanting to rule the world, and it would never happen. And it's a blessing it doesn't happen, right? Like, because otherwise we'll again keep living dead life. Like Claudia was sharing, when there's a stone under her feet, she suddenly wakes up that, what is she doing? Again, a lot of times when bad things happen, bad things like, say, you break a cup or you spill milk, right? You suddenly come back to this awareness that, where was I? How did this happen? So these small, small things, again, it's like when you have a bad dream, that's when you wake up. But nightmare wakes you up. But in a good dream, you say, oh, I wish I could have slept, for 2 more hours. So I think
Yeah.
so.
So I'll just give a small example on this. Like every day in the morning, I have 7 to 9 almonds.
Yeah.
So when they are sweet, I don't even realize I'm eating them. But when out of those 9 almonds, I get one bitter almond, then that I realize, oh, I'm eating an almond.
Yeah.
So another thing I'm reading a book these days. So the chapter which I was reading yesterday night was a little bit on death only. So I'll just share it here.
Yeah.
So there's this lady who's from the West, but she has joined Buddhism. She's now converted into Buddhism. So she is staying in a cave for many years and just practicing her meditations and her reading books and all. So once she's at in a cave which is an altitude of 13,200 feet. So once there was a blizzard and it went on for 7 days continuously. And that was the time when her cave was kind of buried and she couldn't see anything out of a window. It was complete darkness. So as Buddhist, she was taught to look at death squarely in its face. So she mentioned in the book that she meditated, she visualized her body melting on a funeral pyre or decomposing in the earth. I mean, these are the visualizations she had when she was meditating, when she was buried under the snow. So she said that it had twofold lessons. One was that the shock when death would come upon would lessen and sought priorities for whatever time left. Because she realized that the time left is very less. So the fact that death is there kind of, helps us prioritize what we want to do and what we don't want to do. And sometimes when we want to just forget about death. So at that, then we're just, busy doing the day-to-day things and enjoying the parties and just earning money and things like that. So this was something very nice, I thought, and it kind of, matched with today's topic.
It's really beautiful. Again, in the Tibetan culture, like it's like death is part of everyday life. Like every day they do certain practices which they know would help them after death, which will help them cross over. So it's real. It's not shrugged away. It's not ignored. Like as you said, those visualizations, they are actually meditative practices to see your body melting, in the fire, so that you feel less attached, right? So doing such practices, I think, is really good because then you keep stepping back, right? You keep stepping back, even if it is for those 30 seconds when you are visualizing or 5 minutes, that helps, that gives you something to hold on to other than what you usually see everywhere. So yeah, it builds, yeah, it gives you something. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much and have a good evening. Hope to see you guys again in the next any topic that you're going to. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.